We will break down Harold Landry a little bit more here. So let's sort of do so. You mentioned his dip, at least in terms of pass rush win rate production last season. I wonder if that too is frankly his one season away from Mike Vrabel in the system he wanted to run last year.
And Terrell Williams and all those guys, yeah.
Exactly. So he's kind of away from what he knew there. But he was a Pro Bowler in 2021, 50.5 career sacks, 2 interceptions. You also mentioned the 9 sacks last year. We wanted to sort of pull up some of his PFF stuff. So I'll pull up that right now. And Tayler, you can kind of flush through that and sort of tell us what you think and how he can fit into what the Patriots and Terrell Williams want to do here next year.
Yeah, no, but I've already looked up a lot of his stats, so I can kind of just riff now. So, yes, the pass rush productivity has gone down. Now, you do see his bread and butter is the ghost move. Basically, it's just when you run at the offensive tackle, pretend like you're going to basically use just a one-arm stab where you get into his chest and walk him back. When you usually shoot the hand, it prompts the offensive tackle to shoot them back. And what guys can do when they have really good bend is they take that hand away, dip underneath the offensive tackle's punch, and then they're able to get around the arc. This is Von Miller's go-to move. He really, not popularized it, but it was really like his move for a while. Like he had ownership because he was better at it than anybody else. Harold Landry can still do that, even though he isn't as explosive as he used to be, which is why I think a lot of the pass rush productivity has gone down. But he can still win.
We got it here?
Yeah, that one still works. Yeah.
Okay.
But he can still win in that way. Still, again, getting after the quarterback. Now, what I really want to focus on more is his run defense because he's been a very good run defender. Actually had his best season last year. He was top 10 alongside Anthony Jennings in run stops. And we can scrap this, honestly. This was a bad idea. I can just riff. But he was one of the best in the NFL at his position in tackles for loss and run stops. I know that's not going to excite people, but I need to emphasize that last season, this was still one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So it's not like all they needed was pass rush. They were getting run on pretty consistently as well. It's also going to be a different scheme where in years past, Jelani Tavai could bump down in the line of scrimmage and be the guy opposite Anthony Jennings. They haven't really had that consistent edge setter opposite him. So now you have 2 guys who can do that. And with Harold Landry at least being a veteran who can give you discipline on the edge, something you didn't really get a lot last season from Keon White, from even veterans like Dietrich Wise. If you have Keon White at defensive tackle, you pair him with a Milton Williams or a Tershawn Wharton or one of these really good pass rushers. If you have 2 guys on the inside wrecking havoc, really, obviously you still want guys who can win one-on-one in the edge, but their job is mostly just don't let the quarterback get outside, let him panic in the pocket, and then you clean up. So I still think the Patriots are going to try to address situational pass rusher on the edge in the draft, maybe in free agency, although guys like Baron Browning are off the market. There's not a ton of great options there, maybe like a Derek Barnett. But yeah, I know I've already been getting crap because I said, oh, look, the Patriots now have the best, edge setters in the league maybe, or the best edge setting duo. And people were like, oh, yeah, in a passing league. Well, yeah, as, Belichick has said, as I'm sure Vrabel will say some version of, you need to earn the right to rush the passer. And I do think that now that you have Jennings and Harold Landry on the edge, and Landry still being able to contribute in pass rushing situations, you're in much better shape already than you were last year.
So question on the edge not being necessarily as much of a need now, right? So they come into this with clearly needing some help, and we wonder if a guy like Abdul Carter can fall to number 4. That doesn't push you away from taking him at 4, does it? Say he falls there, would you still take the generational player, or would you then trade back now that you have someone who can potentially set the edge for you for the next couple of years?
No, I think that Harold Landry, I think he got a lot of that money because he's going to be kind of a leader at the position.
Yeah, good.
He's able to show the new guys how it's done in this system and all those things. But I do not think it's the kind of move where you're like, oh, we're set on the edge. Like, this is the part of free agency where you're trying to get guys in the room that you're familiar with that can kind of help you rebuild the culture. And then again, bring these young guys along and just be consistent, go-to guys in that sense. And then you're hoping through the draft you upgrade. Like, that's what free agency is. So this is not, the end-all be-all type of move. It's just a solid addition to a roster that had no depth at all at the edge position and not even really one every down starter.
And I think it's a good way to sort of set the foundation that we talked about in our last show, where we did our whole what was the word? Not our best free agency, our dream free agency on Friday when we did the show. And we were talking about, go get the big fish and go get your Milton Williams and trade for a DK Metcalf or a Brandon Ayuk, which we'll get to Metcalf in a second. But there's also the aspect of setting a foundation with guys who you can trust, who are going to do the right thing, who have been in the league, who are veterans. You look at, now it's not entirely similar to, for example, Washington bringing in a guy like Bobby Wagner last year, but what they did was bring in guys who were familiar with what they did and with who Dan Quinn was and who Cliff Kingsbury was. They bring in a guy in Zach Ertz. And I look at these two signings as sort of similar to that, where you bring in a guy on offense, you bring back a guy, you bring in a guy on defense, you bring back a guy on offense who can really command a presence and be a leader and show the ropes for everybody else. And the guys who you give the money to, and this is, I heard this on the radio from Breer the other day, the guys who you give the money to, everyone else is going to sort of flock and be like, oh, these are the types of people that they want us to be on this team. So we're going to go
standard setters
and lead. Right. They are the standard. So I like the sign. Go ahead.
And then also we have to talk about Za'Darius Smith as well. He was released by the Lions. He's a guy who, one, obviously worked with Terrell Williams last year in Detroit, but also earned a Pro Bowl with Mike Smith. I believe he followed Mike Smith from I think it was to the Vikings. I know they had been somewhere. Maybe it was
from the Ravens to the Vikings. That sounds right.
Yeah. So Za'Darius Smith is somebody who has experience with Williams, with Mike Smith, who's the outside linebackers coach. So if you're looking for more of that veteran situational pass rusher type, I think he's absolutely somebody that we should talk about if he wants to be on a rebuilding team, because he's really been more of a one-year merchant going to teams that have a shot in the playoffs. I don't know if he'd want to come to New England, but given the connections, he absolutely is somebody we got to talk about.
Yeah, since 2018, he's been with Baltimore, Green Bay, Minnesota, Cleveland, Detroit. A couple double-digit sack seasons over the last couple years. I don't want to even really say fell off. He had 9 last year combined between Cleveland and Detroit. I think that was a deadline deal for Detroit after they lost Aiden Hutchinson, and he came in. He's 32 years old, so he's a bit on the older side, but that is someone to certainly look out for that they could bring in because, again, of those connections. And if it's a shorter money deal, sort of in that same leadership / I know what I'm doing under these types of coaches role. So again, they bring in Landry. That's another one they can look for there.
What's going on, everyone? Tayler Kyles here for CLNS Media with a very exciting announcement. Here at Patriots Press Pass, we will be introducing bonus tiers. Now, this will not affect any of the content that hopefully you've grown to know and love over here at Patriots Press Pass. It's all going to be some brand new stuff and extras so we can connect with you more and also provide you some more in-depth and high-quality content. Hopefully, you guys are going to like it. Here are the tiers and what you should be expecting from all these new bonuses. At Tier 1, we've got Rookie Starter. That'll come with ad-free content, early access to videos, 5% off of all merchandise, and even custom emojis. At Tier 2, we've got All Pro. Once again, ad-free content, early access, 10% off merchandise, custom emojis, but that'll also come with player profile film reviews and draft profiles. At Tier 3, we've got GOAT status. Same as all the other tiers, but it's going to be 20% off of all merchandise, and we're also going to have custom segments, Discord chat rooms with myself and other show hosts, as well as live film reviews with myself and whomever we've got on the podcast for that day, hoping to have some pretty fun guests.